and let's talk a little bit for a few minutes here about what Michigan can be in the 21st century. I want to start with a couple of disclaimers. The first disclaimer is that over the course of the day, you're going to hear a lot of things. Some of these things are going to have price tags to them. Some of these things are things that we can do right now if we just decide we're going to do them. Some of these things are going to be proposals for new programs. We recognize, we're not naive, we recognize that the state's facing another budget deficit of $1.5 billion. We recognize that some of these things we're not going to be able to do right this minute. But part of what we need to do is think about what is it we can do right now. What is it we can do about shifting resources that are being used for other things that would be more appropriately put to use here? And what are things that we need to keep in mind and figure out how are we going to generate the resources to do these things? So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. The second thing that I wanted to say is that the other thing you're going to hear a lot of talk about today is a lot of talk around fruits and vegetables. There's going to be some discussion of other parts of the food that we eat as well, but a lot of the discussion is going to be around fruits and vegetables. But I want to, and part of that's for two reasons. One is because we know that they are an incredibly important component of a healthy diet, and we know that there's virtually no Americans in the United States today that eat sufficient amounts. So that's number one. Number two is, for a whole host of reasons, it's much, much easier to get startup farms going and to get things going around fruits and vegetables. That said, let us not forget that there are many other sectors in agriculture that are producing animal products, dairy, grains, beans, and all those other things that we need for a healthy diet. And there are things that we can do inside there as well as we move a good food system forward in Michigan today. And so with those two things then, let me just move on. And let me talk a little bit first about the process that we're using. So we've got the work group presentations and activities. The co-conveners, for your information, and the 5 work groups, as you'll hear today, have been working since October. They've been interviewing people, having conference calls and further discussions with groups of about 18 people in each of those work groups. And again, those are all listed in your program. Please look at who else has been participating in those. Their presentations today are very brief, 15 minutes each, which means they're going to scan the surface of the work that they've been doing. They're going to provide a snapshot of some of the things that they have come up with that they think could happen in the sector that they're going to talk about. There will, however, be, they are developing, and the 1 to 2 page summaries that are up on the website now is again a snapshot. They are in the midst of developing 20 to 30 page reports for each of those work groups that will become part of the Good Food Charter for Michigan as we move forward. So there will be much more depth. Those will be available for public comment on April the 1st, and I'll talk more about the timeline in just a second. In fact, I'll talk about it right now. So we've got 5 work groups: youth engagement in community food, food system infrastructure, institutional food purchasing, farmer viability and development, and healthy food access for families and communities. And as I've said, those have been working since September, October. February 20th, they developed a 1 to 2 page draft report summary that went up on the website for people to look at prior to the conference. The summit today that's happening will provide brief presentations, some tabletop discussions, some of those turning point questions for you to react to things that you think are the most important so we can get a sense of what you all think. All of those comments and feedback will be posted on the website by March 4th so that then, again, there's a public comment period that'll run until March 18th, and there will be a way on the website for anybody to make any kind of comments they want to. All of that, and we're also going to encourage both regional and individual responses through the website. April 12th, we will be posting a draft of the Michigan Good Food Charter. Now that's not going to be just these reports packaged together as, you know, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and 5. In fact, what it's going to be a synthesis of what a good food system could look like in Michigan, and what are all the opportunities out there if we take all these things and package them into a whole. And that'll be up for public comment. And we'll have about 11 days there, April 23rd, for public comment there. Then our plan is to release the Michigan Good Food Charter on May the 15th. And we've chosen that date with great care because that is also the week of filing deadlines for all elected offices for the 2010 election. So anybody running for state senate, anybody running for state rep, anybody running for governor has to file by that week. That Good Food Charter, and we will get a list of all of those people that are running. This Good Food Charter will be sent to every one of them. And over the summer, we're going to encourage yourselves and everybody else, to the extent that you want to to work with all of those people who are running for office in your district, to educate them about the value of good food for Michigan from whatever context you want to do it, and see to what extent can we infuse this into the 2010 electoral cycle. 30 out of 38 state senators this year are term limited, and they will be turning over. We will have basically a new state senate next year. The House of Representatives, of course, everybody's up for re-election every 2 years. So there's a lot of elected offices up for grabs this year. So let's infuse it. The governor's office is up for grabs. Let's infuse this into the electoral cycle so that over the next 2-year period, in fact, we can really push the envelope on developing some of this at the state level and in communities across the state. The goals that we have set here is to catalyze the implementation of the charter. And again, we are starting today to present some ideas. We're not starting with a blank slate. We're throwing things out there based on the discussions of about 100 people over the last 4 to 5 months. That doesn't mean that's what's set in stone. Your reactions to it today, things that you think, additions, subtractions, etc., what happens over the next 2 months is what will become the charter for good food for the state of Michigan. Again, we wanted to inform the 2010 state and local electoral cycle, and we want to use this to help build a statewide network so that post-November of 2010, in fact, then we get down to work about implementing this across the state of Michigan. Now, let me put this in context for you. This is a slide from researchers at MSU that looks at fruit diversity production across the state. The darker it is, the more production and the more types of fruits are produced. The point of this is not so much the slide itself, but let me just tell you a little story about it. Right now, we get an increasing amount of our food every year from non-domestic sources. Now, that's neither good nor bad, but it is. Now, the thing to keep track of, though, is that in those places where we're getting that food, we source food and food ingredients from about 150 countries around the world annually. All of those countries are experiencing population growth. Many of those countries are experiencing water shortages. And those things are only going to, population's going to increase, water shortages are going to exacerbate. What does that mean? That means by 2050, if I were a betting man, I would not place a bet on us being able to get the same amounts of food from non-domestic sources then that we are now. What does that mean? That means that we, I think, as a national security measure, should be maintaining the ability to produce a food supply domestically. It does not mean we don't engage in global trade. It does mean we don't lose our capacity. And in fact, we rebuild our capacity in some arenas. Now, if we look domestically, and again, let's just look at fruit and vegetable production. About 50% of our domestic fruit and vegetable production comes out of that little state on the West Coast called California. Well, California has 36 million people. By 2050, they're going to grow to 50 million people. They're going to add 14 million people. Those 14 million people need houses. They need roads and bicycle lanes. They need places to work, all of which take land. And those 14 million people take water. Guess where land and water typically come out of? They typically come out of agriculture. Climate change scenarios indicate that the snowpack runoff that irrigates most of that fruit and vegetable production land in California could decline by as much as 70% over that period of time. Which means that, again, if I were a betting man, I would bet that California is not going to be able to do in 2050 what they're doing today. What does that mean? Well, if we put that all together, we could either shake in our boots or we could say we better do something now and be proactive about what we do. And what we can do now is redistribute the production of fruits, vegetables, dairy products, grain products, and meat products across the country. And reduce the dependence on production centers and spread it across the country. To many people, that's local food systems. To other people, it's getting things locally and it's increasing economic development. To me, it just makes a lot of sense. And so that's the national and global context in a very brief nutshell for why I think what we're doing today and what we need to do over the next few years is critically important. So what can we be as a state, as communities of people that are living in a time and a place? Well, we envision a thriving economy, equity, and sustainability for all of Michigan and its people through a food system rooted in local communities and centered on good food. That is food that's healthy, green, fair, and affordable. Let me break that all down for a second. What does a thriving economy mean? Well, a thriving economy means that children, families, communities, and businesses in both rural and urban areas are prosperous. What does equity mean? Equity means that all communities have the conditions needed to thrive. What does sustainability mean? Sustainability means that our cultural, our ecological, and our economic assets are protected over the long term. We are a state and a nation of many cultures. We've learned to appreciate each other's cultures in large part. In fact, we've learned from a food standpoint, we've learned to enjoy foods from all over the world. We've learned to fuse different cuisines together and enjoy mixtures of cuisines from all across the world with all different kinds of ingredients and spices and fruits and vegetables and meats and all kinds of things. We've learned to enjoy that, and we need to respect that and honor that and maintain that diversity of cultures that we have in this state and in this country and continue to recognize that and allow that to thrive. Ecological. In many ways, we're a blessed state. One of the things that I always think is that if we don't give away or sell our water, we're going to be the place to be in 20 years. Because we've got a lot of fresh water. We have good rainfall and we're surrounded by a lot of great lakes. We've got a lot of rivers, streams, and lakes inside the boundaries of our landmass. We also have a number of different ecosystems and climates. We have many different soil types because of all the geological transformations that have occurred over the millions of years. We have sandy soils and clay soils, and we have rocky soils and we have loam soils. We have all kinds of things going on with our soils. We have microclimates because of the lake effects, where we can grow 70% of the country's tart cherries in 3 counties of the upper part of the lower peninsula. We have tremendous areas of fruit and vegetable production along the western side of the state because of those nice sandy soils and the moderated winters. We have wonderful growing conditions, and we have a lot of varied growing conditions. We need to preserve that. We need to enhance that. We need to make sure that we can do that for the future. We have economic assets. You know, we had a godfather industry in this state for 100 years called the auto industry. And the godfather's not so much of a godfather anymore. And we all know that. And we're trying to figure out what the 21st century economy is going to be. And I think what's pretty clear to everybody is that there is no other godfather sitting there. That in fact what we need to think about is a diffuse economy based around a green economy, but coming at it from a whole lot of different angles. We have a lot of assets that we can use to build on that. Given that we are the second most diverse agricultural state in the country, we have tremendous knowledge of how to grow and produce a large variety of products, of agricultural products. We have a large number of people with mechanical, with technical, with engineering skills that can be put in play to develop new tools and new equipment for different scales of agriculture and different ways to make agriculture production, processing, distribution more sustainable, more efficient, and provide a better quality of life for those who engage in it. We have tremendous assets if we choose to use them. So that's what sustainability means to me in this. The other piece of it is to remember, I think that's important, is that sustainability is not an endpoint that we're trying to shoot for. There's no curtain that we're trying to open. It's a process that will unfold over our lifetimes and our children's lifetimes and our grandchildren's lifetimes. We will continually get better at being more efficient with our resources and having more integrity in the ecosystems that surround us. So what about good food? Okay. So what if 10 million Michigan residents in fact had good food daily? Well, let's think about what that might mean. Good food means that it's healthy food. It provides nourishment and enables people to thrive. Good food means that it's green. It's produced in a manner that's environmentally sustainable. It means that it's fair, that no one along the production line was exploited for its creation. That there's livable wages up and down the food chain so that in fact those people are able to pay taxes, engage in things in their community, and help recreate a robust economy. It's affordable. All people have access to it. We know that right now there's a large segment of our society, of our community, of our state, in which people do not have access to good food because it's not affordable or because it's just not in their community, or both. And we need to figure that one out. If in fact we had that, I guarantee you Michigan would be the place to be. Because there's so many other things that would have fallen into place also that Michigan would be the place to be. We would not have to worry about our young people moving to Chicago or moving to other places where there's more jobs. People would want to be moving here. So I ask the question, why can't we have it all? Why can't we have a vibrant economy that fits the 21st century with the recognition that a locally integrated food system is an important part of our toolkit of economic development, of public health, of ensuring that our children have all the opportunities to reach their potential. Why can't we have a healthy population with each person able to realize their potential with a particular focus on vulnerable populations so that everyone has access to a healthy diet on a daily basis? Why can't we have smart, efficient, sustainable development so that everyone has the opportunity to do productive and rewarding work? The way that I look at it is that good, healthy food is a right of citizens and residents of the state of Michigan. Productive work is a responsibility. Why can't we have the preservation and enhancement of our natural resources for future generations so that your children and grandchildren have these same opportunities? I say preservation and enhancement because, of course, in some cases we've in fact degraded our natural resources and we need to take some time to rebuild them. In some cases we need to rebuild the quality of our water, our surface water, our groundwater. In some cases we need to rebuild the quality of our soil. In some cases, we need to revegetate areas. And in other cases, we need to preserve what's there. The point is that we need to make sure that my daughter, who's 11, when she's my age, when she has kids, her kids, that they have the same opportunities to enjoy and to make use of the natural resources that I do right now. So let me just give you an example to ponder. Some of you are probably familiar with unheated hoop houses. Solar hoop houses. These are structures. There's some going up in Flint now. There's some on farms around the state. There's some starting to go up in Detroit, in which basically solar energy is used to heat it. There's no fossil fuel energy that goes in it. So we have a few of these on the landscape right now. And I think that the time has come for us to think about not a few, but to think about many. To think about how, in fact, this is an important part of our economic development toolkit and our public health toolkit. So what if we had 5,000 30 by 96 foot unheated hoop houses producing vegetables year-round in Michigan? You can produce 12 months a year a certain number of crops in these things without added fossil fuel, for those of you who aren't aware of them. Capital investment for 5,000 of those is about $75 million. I don't know about you, I read the Lansing State Journal, and when I look at all of the money that goes into various economic development strategies, $75 million is a lot of money. But it's actually not all that much in relationship to some of the things we do to try to attract businesses from abroad. That $75 million of investment could grow somewhere between $25 and $100 million per year, depending on a number of variables, the type of market, the type of crop, the prices you're charging, et cetera, et cetera. Could produce between 12 and 25 million pounds of vegetables per year. Percentage of these could be put up at schools around the state as tools for science, math, geography, and food studies education. Let's take it back a step. What if, because all those hoop houses have steel ribs, there's a lot of steel in those things to get those together. What if instead of steel, those things were made out of plastic, those ribs were made out of plastic? And what if those plastics, the raw materials, came from bio-based materials that were produced in Michigan? And what if the plastics were produced in Michigan? And what if all of the materials that go into those hoop houses were produced in Michigan? And so now we have an integrated system where the input supplies to produce that greenhouse, in fact, is a whole other set of industries for the state of Michigan. So I just want to spend a second, because I've been given the 3-minute warning. I just want to spend a short amount of time giving you a little idea of the linkage of these 5 work groups. We set up these 5 work groups in a particular way with particular titles. If other people were doing this, other groups, other planning committees, they might have set them up differently. Okay? We start with youth engagement and community food. These are the current and future consumers. These are the current and future entrepreneurs that we need in the state of Michigan to build the new economy. These are the future food producers. This is the most important generation right now, is those kids that are in high school, that are in college, that are making decisions over their lives and what they're going to do. Are they going to leave Michigan, or are they going to stay here and build a new economy? We need new farmers, and the existing farmers that we have, we need to help enhance their viability. We need to create many new cohorts, not 10, 20, 30 a year, 200, 300, 400, 500 new farmers a year, to produce this good food, to replace farmers that are retiring and build new cohorts of farmers across the landscape, and new markets for them. We need a food system infrastructure, as you'll hear. The food system infrastructure that we have is geared towards the global marketplace. We need to catalyze new businesses from sustainable inputs like the greenhouses that I talked about, like fertilizers and things like that, inputs to distribution, marketing, and processing. We need institutional food purchasing as a base market and creating educational spaces for consumers. We'll hear more about that later. And we need to ensure that healthy food access is available for all families and communities in the state of Michigan. We need to ensure that vulnerable families and their children can share in Michigan's bounty. The time has come, I believe, for us to develop a locally integrated food system in Michigan that's a dynamic blend of local direct marketed, local indirect, regional, national, and global. With the key word local. The criteria that I use for local is quite simple. If we can, we should. And we can a lot more. So the time has come, I think. The time has come for us to recognize and for us to influence policymakers, both in the private and the public sector, those who are engaged in activities across the state that are building the economy, building public health. The time has come to recognize the tremendous opportunity for utilizing a locally integrated food system as a key component of our smart growth, our economic development, our youth development, health disparity elimination, and the public health toolkit for the state of Michigan. So with that, I will close and I will say enjoy the rest of the day. We welcome you all to think hard and help this move forward in our communities across Michigan. Thank you all very much and enjoy your day.